Okay, we're going to talk about this. How's it going? TVR, Xorro, whatever you want to call me. It's that time again. It's been a minute. I know the last episode I did was the Christmas one. Very much a delayed episode, but I'm here again. I plan on doing these once a month again. But regardless, here we are. I asked you guys, since we're getting Knights of the Round Table Vol.6, which comes out today as of the release of this video, I figured the question this time would be, which Disciple comp is your favorite, and why? Best answers get featured in a video, so here we go. Is this even a debate? Alliance Volume 6. The cover art has this 80s bobblehead aesthetic to it. The tracks are consistently good, with some pretty high highs, hell yeah, Paul McGriddum. And it came out at a pretty good time when I first really got into EDM. I'd also like to casually mention that Dream Logic is probably a top 10 Disciple / Roundtable track of all time, and that track is on Volume 6. So, you know what, and Volume 6 is an interesting one because for some reason I have just forgotten to rank it, even though I've heard it, like 2-3 years ago. so I don't know what it is, but, you know, I'll get on that ranking at some point. I know I will. But in regards to the actual response, I like some of the songs on Volume 6 quite a bit. As a matter of fact, Volume 6 has one of the few Bandles tracks that I actually regularly enjoy listening to. And there's other ones too, obviously Virtual Riot. The Eliminate track is pretty good. Fox Stevenson's song on there is pretty fucking awesome. There are some low lows, you know, there are tracks that I would rather not have to listen to again. But yeah, Volume 6 is not a bad one, you know. There's some highs, there's definitely some lows. Not one of my personal favorite comps from them, but it's a fun one. I will admit that. I'm going to say Alliance 7. Sure, it has its misses, Hoot and VIP, but the first half of the comp is incredibly consistent with artists like Bandles, Graphite, Dirty Phonics, Oliverse, and E-Craze showing some of their best work, and the latter half I feel gets slept on with Mode Steps, Amplifier, Chibs, Phase 1, and to an extent Terra Vita doing solid as well. For the most part, it's a really consistent comp and manages to have many fun tunes. You had me all the way up until you said Terra Vita doing solid as well. Those are 5 words I just did not really expect to read in reference to the Bagman. Aside from that comment, yeah, I agree. Volume 7 is really stacked, and for it being the last Alliance comp that I guess we're gonna get, they went out pretty fucking strong. There's a lot of strong tunes on here, you know, some of which actually helped me get into Disciple when it was kind of like toward the end of 2021. A lot of these songs actually helped me kind of get into doing regular Disciple uploads and also just listening to them on a regular in general. The Barely Alive song is great, the Virtual Riot song's great, Eliminate song's great, Oliverse, E-Craze, Graphite, mostly all the ones you said. I'm not too big on like the Bandles one. I think I've mentioned before how a lot of Disciple comps have that kind of thing where a lot of the best tracks are toward the top and a lot of the worst tracks are toward the bottom, and I think that comp follows that to a T. But honestly, really good stuff all around. This is definitely one of my favorites. I don't know if it is my favorite yet, but it for sure is toward the top of that list. I pick Alliance Volume 5. The idea of a collab-based comp is interesting and leaves room for a lot of potential collabs from artists in the Disciple roster. Every track is pretty good as well, minus Old School, but there have been worse tracks in other Alliance comps. Yeah, I don't really disagree that much. There are a lot of good songs on this one. For instance, the Barely Alive and Fox Stevenson collab, a really weird collab, but it works wonders, honestly. The Virtual Riot and Infect, I think, works really well. I think Chibs and Virus Syndicate as well is a really fun combo. And of course, you have the big, like, collab song, you know, that they kind of did for a while throughout, like, 4, 5, and 6, which we'll get to 4 later in the video. Again, I wouldn't say this is... I would actually put this probably on the same level as Volume 6, whereas there are some really good songs, and there are some really meh, or or bleh. But yeah, it's a decent comp. I can't really argue with that. Have to agree with some others. Reinforcements 3. It's not that every song is good, there's actually quite a few that I don't like, but the volume of amazing songs is higher than any other comp. Lost and Alone is some cool color base. Shattering is a banger that uses an unconventional structure to it. Bleh. That uses an unconventional structure to to its advantage. Why can't I say that? Uses an unconventional structure to its advantage. There we go. Transfixed has 2 fantastic drops that build off each other. Odium is one of the heaviest tracks on the label. Berserk is an epic statement of a track from Nair. Plenty of other good songs, and even the bad songs are at least creative, which is always a good sign. And you know, I'm actually pretty big fan of Reinforcements Volume 3 because I think it's better than the other 2, for one. And for another, it has a lot of really cool artists on here. It has a lot of cool songs. One of my favorite artists of 2022, Frantic, is on here. I never really got into like the middle part of the track list, you know, like Mar6 or Nair or anyone kind of that similar caliber. There are tracks that I don't really love on the comp, especially toward the lower half. Yeah, just it's a fun comp, you know? I wouldn't say it's one of the best per se on the label. I would definitely recommend it if you haven't heard it already, which if you've been following my channel for the past 2 or so years, you better get on it. Round Table Reinforcements 3 and Knights of the Round Table Volume 5 is the best Disciple comps for me. Maybe that's because of their length, but regardless of that, I was astounded by the talents on the comps I mentioned. I'm just going to take a minute to focus on Volume 5 here because no one really gave a definitive Volume 5 answer. This is probably my favorite. Not only because it came out around the time where I was really getting into Disciple. Some of my favorite dubstep artists from the past few years have been on it. Diatic, Butte Noise, Zaber's on it. Yes, Lumpasketti's on it too. And even some of the big like Disciple heads, Barely Alive, Samplifier, E-Craze, Graphite. All of them, Bainbridge, Bandles, they're all a part of it too. And much like every other Disciple comp, there are going to be a few songs that I don't really like, and that does apply to this comp. However, the ratio of songs that I do like compared to the songs I don't is really fucking high. So I honestly don't really care that much that I don't like a few of them, because honestly this comp is probably like, I would say maybe a 8 out of 10. But yeah, just this comp is fantastic, and it's probably my personal favorite from Disciple we've had yet. Since Alliance Volume 7 and Knights of the Round Table 5 were already mentioned here, I might as well go with Afterlife Volume 1. It was nice seeing Disciple giving some of their spotlight to some powerful color-based tracks. Definitely loved Rise, Iridescent, and Waterfall. It also made me love a Crystal Skies song for the first time. The only problem is that Snow was just a little too weak for the comp. Other than that, this comp is a near masterpiece. I mean, as someone who's not really into the whole color-based hemisphere, as seemingly a lot of other people are, I thought this comp was alright, you know? There was a lot of fun stuff. It's nice to see some of the bigger names in, like, the color-based hemisphere here. So, like, you had Skybreak, Ace Aura, Sharks, Chime. But yeah, it's just not really my kind of thing. I personally prefer Volume 2 over this, which also has Chime. But yeah, just this one's alright to me. Alliance Volume 4, and I know that's controversial, but hear me out. We managed to get all the Disciple members that did controversial things in the future or left Disciple. We got the others, Good Hatcha, surprising, Fox Stevenson Peak Dubstep, and a whole bunch of other awesomeness, so there's my hot take. That's an interesting hot take. This is the only comp on this entire video I have not heard. It just hasn't. Well, I've had the time, but I've never just gotten to listening to this one. So I can't really give my thoughts on it, which sucks because this is one of the only few answers that one of the few straightforward answers that I ended up getting. So it's also my fault because I haven't listened to every Disciple comp. So yeah. Absolutely no soul seems to have mentioned Round Table Reinforcements Volume 2. Every track on there is a massive slapper, especially Leave Me, Asylum, Elysium, and Pattern Breaker. Very underrated comp, which deserves a lot of love. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty cool comp too. There's a lot of newer names, obviously, that's kind of the point of it. But, you know, there's a lot of really fun talent here. You've got Diatic, you've got DDK, you've got, pretty sure Biza was on this comp too. Oh yeah, Dino Shadix was on here. Dr. Ushu was on here. Yeah, there were some cool songs on here. I wouldn't call it my favorite, but there are some cool songs on here. Not really too much to say outside of that, I guess. I mean, it's a good comp. It's a good comp. Not my favorite compared to Volume 3, but I do like it more than Volume 1. So, if that really matters to anyone. And that is this episode of TVR Asks. I apologize if this video seemed kind of rushed. It's because it was. I've got like all these different things on my plate at the current moment, so I wanted to get specifically these set of roundtable videos out before Volume 6 dropped. It's been a chaotic past couple months, but things are starting to kind of like settle down, it seems like, so I'm hoping I can be able to put more videos out consistently. And I'm also still working on the album, so there's that on top of everything else. And if you haven't checked it out yet, today is the release date of Knights of the Round Table Volume 6, so if you haven't, go ahead and check that out. I personally have not heard it yet, so I can't really tell you how good it is, but it's a big release nonetheless, so definitely check it out. But yeah, that's all for today, and I'll see you guys another time. Peace out.